Hi again, everybody. Well, with most of the inlay done, all I have to do is the inlay knobs, which we'll be doing in a little bit, and the control plate, and I haven't done that one yet because I'm really not sure what I want to put on it yet. So we're going to start finishing the guitar. Now, I've got this all sanded down to about 220 grit sandpaper, and it's feeling very smooth, but to get a really nice solid finish, you need to fill the grain in. Otherwise, when you put the finish on, the finish will just soak down into the grain and look terrible. So what we're going to do is use some neutral grain filler, which will look great on here, and it'll also cause like this redwood here to pop out a little bit more. The grain will show more, which I want, because on the shield, I don't know if anyone's noticed, I actually was very careful about how the grain went in the shield. All the grain in the shield goes toward the center. I want to make sure people still see that, because I took some extra time to make that happen. So what we're going to do here is just base coat this thing with a grain filler, let it sit for a couple of hours, and then sand it down with some 220 grit sandpaper, and that way it'll fill the grain in, so when I put the finish on, the finish is going to be just nice and smooth like a piece of glass, which, you know, a lot of high-end guitar players, that's what they're used to, and that's what they want to see, and that's what I want to see. So let's get started on that process. I'm actually using a water-based grain filler here, and the reason why I do that is the water in the grain filler will cause the wood to swell up a little bit and open up the grain, and that'll allow this grain filler straight in, which is what I want to do. Okay, I've sanded down most of the grain filler. I still have a little bit to go on the body. And what we're going to do here is put a little bit of new color back into the headstock. As you can see, it's kind of, the grain filler sort of washed it out a little bit, which I'm not, you know, I love what it's done with the light grain behind the background, but it's kind of washed out the rest of it, and I wasn't real pleased with that. So we're going to go back in and touch it up. I've already done that to the pick guard. And you can see the color difference here between the one that was stained here and the one that was not stained there. What I like here is that you still have this light pink grain in the back. And look what it's done for the maple. Isn't that beautiful? The maple ship here is just beautiful. Well, that's still drying. We're going to do the same thing now to the headstock. And what I'm using here is just some pretty simple Minwax cherry stain, which will just bring this headstock color right back to life. I like using this on rosewood when you need to bring the color back, just because I think the cherry really brings out the nice look of the rosewood. And I'm just going to be very cautious here. Now you can see that I've taped down the back, because I don't want to get any of this on the rest of the body. I just want to get it on the headstock. So we're just going to come in here and lay some of this color in. Wow, look at the difference there. That's really pretty. And I'm going to carefully do the edge that I've taped. The natural grain filler we use really brought out the grain, so it really has a nice wood look to it. I just love that. And then the stain really brought out the back, so we have a really nice, look at that. Wow, does that pop? Now that's a headstock. Okay, we're getting ready to stain here. And for that, I want to make sure that I don't get any stain on my inlay. I spent way too much time making it right. So I've gone back to the frisket stuff I talked about in the last video, which is that clear plastic like you would get on a clock. And with an X-Acto blade, I'm very, very cautiously going around the entire inlay. And I'm going to do that as close as I possibly can in order to protect the inlay from any of the dye we're using. We're actually not using a stain, we're using a dye. And I'm really afraid that if I get the dye on something like the ivory, that it's just not going to come off without a lot of sanding, in which case I'm also removing the dye. So I'm masking off the entire inlay a little bit at a time. And this process here is probably going to take me about a half hour for this one piece, and maybe about a half hour for the inlay on the back. So I got about an hour into just frisking this. You can see how that's coming up around the piece.